Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the Short Circuit webinar, Shorts to Features with Peter Mackie Burns. Short Circuit is a talent development initiative for new and emerging filmmakers in Scotland. It's funded by Screen Scotland and BFI Network, and it's delivered by Film City Features and Glasgow Film. You can find out more by visiting shortcircuit.scot. So I'm Laura, I work for the Glasgow Film Festival industry team, and today we are joined by award-winning director Peter Mackie Burns. His films have screened at over 200 festivals around the world, including Berlin, Venice, South by Southwest, and of course, Glasgow Film Festival. Peter's second feature, Rialto, had its Scottish premiere at Glasgow Film Festival earlier this year. So Peter has kindly joined us to chat about his career to date. And chatting to Peter today will be Ray Tallan. And Ray is head of film at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and he's also worked with Peter in the past. So we've got about 40 minutes for this session. I'm going to hand over to you now, Ray, and I'll pop back in at the end and let you know when the time's up.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks, Peter, for giving up your time to have a chat. It's nice to see you, albeit virtually. So we've got. And obviously, we'll get to points where we're talking about the highlights, the golden bears, and the success. But obviously, all these journeys start somewhere. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first time I bumped into you was at GMAC, the Glasgow Media Access Centre, where I think you had completed Goldsmiths, a film at Goldsmiths, and you were screening at Cafe Flicker.
That's right. Yeah, that was my MA grad film, Honey, the little comedy about the two women dubbing. Which is probably available online if anyone wants to have a look. If you haven't seen it. I shot that at a 1-to-1 ratio, do you remember?
Do. Super 16? Super
16, one roll of film and one take for every shot. So we planned it really well, and with storyboarding and everything in advance before we shot it. Yeah, funnily enough, I looked at that film the other day for the first time.
It's a great piece. It's a great piece of work. I remember because I was screening something at the same time, and I thought, well, mine's is garbage, and this guy's is very good. But I remember it because it was shot on film, and when you talked about the film afterwards, you talked about the ratio and talked about the work that you were doing at Goldsmiths. So how important was it for you to have that kind of time at Goldsmiths and have that kind of formal time?
It was really useful because I went to Goldsmiths as a mature student. I think I went to Goldsmiths when I was in my early 30s. So to do an MA, I could only afford to do 1 year. And I couldn't afford to go to the NFTS. Just didn't have the cash or to do a 2-year MA. So I looked around and I went for a few interviews and I thought Goldsmiths, 1, I could do an MA in a year, which was a big tick. 2, had a very good art school in Goldsmiths and they trained us, but they let us have quite a lot of freedom, and we could shoot all the time and we had loads of classroom exercises. So it was valuable, really valuable for me to go there. In fact, I hadn't made a film before I made my show reel to send to Goldsmiths. Mm-hmm. So I quickly made a little documentary in GMAC and sent it, and I managed to get in. So I was really fortunate to get in. I think they let me in because probably I was the mature student in the group.
And they could sense the talent. They could see it.
They could sense the immaturity, despite my age.
So when you came out with that film, and obviously, Milk was the start of a certain journey as well. But did you make anything? What were you doing between making Honey and coming out of Goldsmiths and getting that commission for Milk? How what kind of timescale was between those two pieces of work?
I think that was about a year, maybe, between the two. The short film Honey that I shot, the one on Super 16, I put it into a few, I don't know anything really about festivals or much, but I put it into a few festivals and it won, I can't remember the name of the award, it won some award in Scotland, and that sort of brought a wee bit of attention to the film. So at that stage, there was a scheme on at GMAC at the time, which was called Cineworks.
Yeah.
And it was normally a 10-minute commissioning scheme. I think they made, was it 6 films a year at the time?
Roughly 5 or 6, and a mix of drama and animation and documentary as well, I think, yeah.
That's right. I'd applied for that scheme. Oh, I must have applied for it about 3 or 4 times. And I think I applied with a documentary idea, which I got shortlisted for but didn't get through. Then I went to Goldsmiths, and I wrote another drama which I submitted to them just after Honey, and they rejected the script because it was too ambitious in terms of scale for the time and for the money that was available. So they said to me, I went to meet them, or the feedback was, could you write something that's achievable in the budget that we have? So basically I thought, right, how much is the budget? How much does it cost a day? What can I do? Could I actually write a story for that money and use that as an exercise? So at the time I lived in a very small flat in Regent Maury Street in York Hill. And 2 things happened. I was with a bathroom with no windows, and it was really small. And I was in the bath one day and I thought, could you make a film in a bathroom? And then I met a friend of mine's sister who told me a little story. I don't know if I told you this. A friend of mine, her sister had to look after her gran while her parents were away. And she was out one night full of what used to be known as the love drug ecstasy. And she was having a bit of a come down, but she had to go around and give her gran a bath. And she told me this. I thought it was quite funny. And then I thought, right, I've got a film in a bathroom. If I make a film in a bathroom, I can control everything. I don't have to worry about the weather, too many locations, moving around, wasting time, wasting money doing that. If I could shoot it in one bathroom, I could control everything. And I've just got a scenario there that this friend of a friend's told me a little story. So I wrote the script and applied for the scheme again, which I think was probably the 4th time. And I took lots of still photographs. I went to GMAC and took lots of still photographs of 2 stand-ins in the bath for my camera angles, and I marked up the shape, the exact dimensions of the bathroom that I had, and then I submitted with a very clear plan. And you know, the people that watch this, they'll have submitted and they're going to make their film. So at the time, for me, can I make a film with 2 women in a room that I'll do in a studio? Because I can control everything, how the camera moves, I can control the lighting. I thought I could, you know, I wouldn't shoot it in a real bathroom because the walls wouldn't be able to float out, so I couldn't get a camera in. So that was really, from leaving Goldsmith to that shooting was about a year, maybe a wee bit longer. Okay. Which you remember, because you were on the shoot.
Yeah, and having got the commission, what was it like? You're going into a scheme where you're going to be mentored, you're going to have people working on your script. Were you assigned a producer? Do you have a say in who you were going to be working with? And how did that all? Because obviously Goldsmiths, you would have been quite, it was you and some of your classmates, but this is slightly different. So how did that feel?
Well, the producer, I applied with a producer. Now, I just met the documentary producer in Glasgow, and she was a friend of a friend. And her name's Marie Olsen, and she had a company who made observational documentaries in Glasgow. But I met her, you know, socially, and I said, listen, I'd like to apply for a short film scheme with a drama. Would you be interested? And I think she thought it was a novel thing for her to do because she'd never dipped her toe in drama before. And she read the script, and I think she saw my grad film Honey, and she thought, okay, well, I can do the producing side if you want a partner to go in with. And I think it really helped. You know, it really helped the application. And people in this, if you can find a producer to work with that you get on with, hang on to them.
Yes.
Oh,
Now, we got
hang
a
on.
question in about cast, because obviously Kathleen McDermott and Brenda Fricker, two names. How, obviously, the script was of a certain, zone where it would you could attract those casts. So what was that something that you were quite passionate about, in terms of casting? How did you go about casting it?
Well, I'm a complete star fucker, so I always like names if I can get them, and of course, normally you're very lucky to get a name, it's rare, and because it was pretty much my first or second shot, I assumed that once you got a name for your shot, then you get one for every every project. I did the old-fashioned thing where I phoned up the agent. I sent the script. I told them the dates, the shooting dates. That's really essential. It's the first thing the agents will ask you: is there any money for this? What are the dates? So I phoned up, and I think we budgeted £150 a day for the actors, and they were on for 2 or 3 days, I think. But it was a sort of a peppercorn fee, or I can't remember if it was like a donation we gave them, like £250, and we fed them and put them up in hotel and stuff. So I did the old thing of just sending the script to an agent, phoning her agent and asking her. And I was working one day and I got a phone call from her in the staff room where I was working. I was Brenda Fricker. I thought someone was winding me up,
Yeah.
And she said, I've read the script, I've never done nude before. And I said, well, maybe we can get a stand-in or a body double for me. She said, don't be ridiculous.
No.
So I knew I had I had to be on my toes with her. And she came, I don't know if you remember, she came to the set, she was brilliant. She didn't socialise, didn't do anything. She went to her dressing room, she came down, she did the takes. She was great. She left. I've never seen her again.
Did you ever hear from her about the film? Did she watch it? Did she like it? Do you know?
Never heard, Ray.
Never heard. Okay.
We did send her the film, and we gave her updates, at least for a couple of years on it. But we never heard from her again. And funnily enough, I was making a film in Dublin. It was a great plug for my new film. I was making in Rialto in Dublin in 2017 or 18. We were shooting 18, I think, and I did availability for her to see if I could get her to come out, because she lives in Dublin, but she'd retired, which was a real shame. I never got to meet her again. Maybe I will if I go back to Dublin. Maybe she'll
Listen, a sequel to Milk, absolutely. So obviously, we can't not talk about the little award that you received for Milk, the Golden Bear, Berlin. So that's wow, that's one of the biggest awards one can get for a short film. So tell me about that experience, because that must have been quite surreal.
It was a complete surprise for us. We, as part of the scheme at the time, Cineworks would screen their films in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh Film Festival. I don't know if that arrangement still happens now. Maybe it's Glasgow, or I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll have to research that a bit. Anyway, we screened in Edinburgh, and and we'd also applied to Berlin just because it was time and it was a big festival. I didn't know anything really about film festivals, and they accepted it and said we were in. So myself and the producer went over, and we were in competition, and I didn't actually realise until I got there it was a big deal. Big festival was a big deal, and Ray, no one was more surprised than me when they read the name out, honestly. So it was great, but of course, after you win an award, it was a complete fluke. It's your luck at the time. Then you assume you're going to win an award every year with every film, and of course that never happens either. So I was spoiled. I was spoiled on my first film.
Yeah. And what about then? So
it opened a lot of doors.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose that goes on to Run then. So, am I right in saying that Run was your next film after Milk?
Yeah, this is the thing. It was another scheme in Scotland. Unfortunately, this scheme's sadly defunct now. But it was a step up in terms of budget size. So it was a scheme called Tartan Shots. The budget was very large if you look back at it now in terms of a short film scheme. But the idea at the time, I believe, was to use this as a calling card for industry, you know. And we shot on film, and we had like a full crew, and everyone was paid scale, you know, everyone was on rate. So although it was a big budget, it was a proper sized crew and everyone was paid, which was, you know, it's unheard of now, I think, for a film scheme for everyone to be paid a rate, you know. One thing I did notice though, when I won the prize in Berlin and I started to go around the festivals to learn a bit about that, I'd meet producers, I you know, potential collaborators, and they'd all ask me the same thing. What's next? Yeah. And I said, yeah, I'm making another short film. I'm going to write a short film. And they were like, why? Why don't you have a feature idea ready? I thought, oh my God, they're right. I don't have one.
Well, whilst the golden bear's still warm.
Yeah, that's the thing. You get a wee window of opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think if you're making a short film and people like it, have another thing in the back burner that you're working on. Don't make the mistake I did. Make the short film, it wins something, take accolades, and then have nothing ready to go. You know.
Yeah.
Be the smart person. Have your feature idea or another shot or another feature. Have that stuff bubbling away in the background.
So when you were kind of writing Run and going through that process of another scheme, were you then writing, trying to get ideas for features as well? Were you kind of
I
doing that
was trying to get them and struggling to get them as well. You know, started a few, abandoned them. I actually went, after Run, I went to do the equivalent of an MA in screenwriting first feature prep course, which is a scheme sadly doesn't run anymore, but it lasted for 6 months at the Binger Film Lab in Amsterdam, where you could go and take an idea for a feature and write your first draft. Or if you were a director, you could prep for 6 months before you went to do your shoot. It was a brilliant school. It's absolutely amazing school. Unfortunately, it's defunct now.
So you were away for 6 months solely working on developing this idea?
I was away with an idea and I wrote a draft in 6 months in Amsterdam. I lived there and we had classes. So it was an industry school, so we'd get industry figures in to talk to us. It was a brilliant school. It was really amazing. And who else was there? Jan de Monge was there, the guy who made 72.
Yeah.
And White Boy Rick recently. Rosie Crerar, I think, went a year after me, or maybe a couple of years after me. Scott Graham, I think, went a year after me. So it had, you know, it was a great school. And I think the guy who came to teach me when I was there was Terence Davies, you know, the brilliant director. So we had great people, we had industry people coming to work with us. And I wrote a first feature, a draft there, but it wasn't very good, you know, unfortunately. So I came up against a very big hurdle, and the hurdle was, oh my goodness, I'm a director, I've made about 3 or 4 shots. The little shot I made, Run, it was quite a dark film, and we went to Telluride with it, which was brilliant, you know, like an A-list festival in America. And then I think it did a British Council sort of tour, but the amount of money you need to promote a short film in the festival circuit from your budget, you know, it's quite I'd always try to leave now if I was making a short film, a third of the budget for the back end, you know, of trying to get it out and about. And we didn't have the money on that project. Although it cost a lot of money to do, we had to finish on film and everything, and, you know, it was pretty expensive.
Yeah.
It was about moving forward, sorry. It was about moving forward. trying to find a feature project.
Sure. And when did, because you got a project on is it the Coming Up scheme for Channel 4, is that right?
That's right, yeah. That's
So where
right.
where did that, so that moving to TV, and obviously in that one year, was that your own script? Because obviously running in Milk, this is work that you've written, you've developed, you're directing. Was that the same for the Coming Up scheme? And how did that feel? Because obviously you're going to TV at this point.
Yeah, what happened was I think the scheme, the IWC scheme for the show Coming Up, and I think they still make Coming Ups, I think they're in a different format. They change the format every few years. At that time, it was advertised as a training scheme, a film for television for directors and writers, and I think some producers too. So I applied and we did a workshop, again with Jan de Monge, funnily enough. And I was sent a script, and they tried to pair up writers with directors, and I was sent a script which I really liked. And I was fortunate enough to be commissioned to make a half-hour film. And the process of making a half-hour film for telly, with a schedule of telly, I found tough,
Right.
And the project, I'm proud of the project, but it was hard to do, in terms we did short shooting time, and I didn't get on with the producers terribly well. It was new producers for me, and I didn't really understand, because I'd only worked with one producer before, I didn't really understand the structure of TV.
Right.
And the power of the producer in TV. And I was green, I hadn't really done very much. And I enjoyed the process, but after the programme went out, it was well received, but I thought, I really want to make a feature film. Really want to go down that route. And, well, we come full circle now, TV's very different now, and I'm working in...
the golden age of TV at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was going to say that,
to do it now,
I mean, you're talking about finishing on film there and shooting on film, and even though it's maybe only been
time.
15 years, technology has massively impacted budgets and time and how one goes into production.
Sure. I mean, now, I made 2 features now, and really, I wanted to shoot and film on both of those. Just, it's possible to do it, but you have to give up something else.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Make choices. Yeah.
Yeah, make choices. So the next film will be the same. I'll ask if I can shoot it on film, and the producers will say, of course, as they always do, of course, Peter, but we're going to have to lose something else.
Yeah.
I always end up in the...
That's fine. We'll shoot it on digital. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
We've got a question from someone about that kind of move from shorts to features. But for me, Daphne was an interesting one, because you made, with the actor that's in your film, Daphne, you made a short film. And was that to kind of proof of concept, that idea? Was that a kind of selling document, or was that a standalone thing that then became a feature?
It was all of those, right? I felt that I wasn't making anything. It'd been a while since I'd made something. And I think for me, it's important to keep making. The more you direct, the better I think your skills are, the more developed they become. So I wanted to make something, but I had no money, and I'd had all of the public money from short film schemes I could possibly, apply for. And I had my share of the public purse there. And I thought, well, I want to make something. Right, I'm just going to try and make something. Because it's been a while. So I hooked up with a writer I hadn't worked with before. And I met Emily Beecham, because we both were the same agency at the time. And our agent introduced us, and we got on really well. And Nico Mensinga and myself decided to try and make a film for Emily Beecham. And I think I spent £500 on that film, and we shot it in London on the street because I'd lived in London. I spent a lot of time there, and I wanted to make a film about an area there and a character there. So we made this 10-minute film. We drove down. I think I spent £300 on petrol, £200 on parking tickets. And I was really lucky that I managed to identify Emily as a talent, someone who I thought was terrific. And we made this little short film. But of course, only having £500 to spend on it, we called in a lot of favours. And we called in a favour from you because we asked you if we could use a room to cut it on in your downtime at the RCS. And you very kindly allowed us to do that, which was brilliant, because without that, we'd have really struggled. And I went to Sirius, in downtime and said, could you help us out there? And they gave us like a very, very low rate and a day or half a day in there. So the idea, I don't know if you can approach places in the same way for deals, but I think the time to do it is when you're starting out, because if they're quiet and you get lucky, they can say, okay, we'll give you.
Yeah, I found a lot of the time, if you're upfront and honest with facilities and people, and you're not trying to pull a fast one, if they've got time and you approach them in a nice way, they want to do you a favour, and they're also looking to work on interesting projects.
Yes.
If editors and sound dubbers are cutting, daytime TV is their bread and butter, which is all fine. If an interesting little project comes in that can fire off the kind of creative side again, then you find that some people are willing to put a few hours in and help you out.
Well, I was very fortunate, and I think I saved that another 150 quid or something to give between Savalas and Sirius.
Yeah.
I just got some more shifts and whatever I was doing at the time afterwards, and that was lucky. So I made this little 10-minute film with Emily, and what happened was that I had no money to put it in festivals. So a friend of mine, a director called Hope Dixon Leach, who directed The Levelling, so Hope said, I know a little film festival in North Carolina, why don't you send it to them? And I sent it to them. They came back and said, yeah, we'll take it, we like it. Why don't you come over too? So I went over to America and showed the film there. And they seemed to like it. And then when I came back, I thought, I'll apply to another few festivals, but we didn't really get very far. But during that process, when we were cutting the film, I showed a cut to Nico Mensinger, who had worked on the script with. And we said, this girl's terrific. Why don't we try do a feature based on this character? And Nico and myself spoke about the character, and we came up with a first draft in about 6 weeks. So in the process of cutting and finishing the film and sending it out, we'd managed to work on a first draft. Oh. And then I thought, well, maybe a better way to use this, is to try interest people. So I thought, I don't know if this film is good or not, but I think the actress is in it, the character she plays is interesting. So I sent the shot as I do, and I have someone that I send my work to every now and again to have a look at and just to ask their opinion about it. And that person's a woman called Caroline Cooper Charles. Don't know if you know Caroline. She's great, producer, she's brilliant. And she was the exec on Milk, so I'd known her for a long time. And everything I'd ever sent her, she always tells me exactly what she thinks. She doesn't need to curry favour with me or anything. She just says, what she thinks, and I can take it or leave it, which is great. So I sent her this, and she said, you should send this. I think this group called The Bureau would like this. A producer there called Tristan Gallagher. I think he might like this. So we sent, Nick and myself sent the first draft of Daphne and the short film as a proof of concept. It wouldn't have been a proof of concept if I hadn't noticed something in the performance and was inspired to write something. And we sent it to the Bureau, and it took a while. But all the time while we were waiting to get a meeting with the Bureau, we were developing the character because we thought there was something in. That's basically how we went from short to feature. there, but I know, speaking to Tristan subsequently, that proof of concept was really useful for them, because I don't think they often get a short film with the person you want in it and a script at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think, and also, of course, like in life, it was timing. They were looking for a new project at the time. So it's hard to admit, but timing is a huge thing about your project with companies, and sometimes the stars align and sometimes they don't. It doesn't mean your project is amazing or terrible. It just sometimes you get a gap. But I'd waited, Ray, I'd worked on numerous aborted feature film projects in over about 10 years to get,
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably quite important to highlight, especially with an audience of kind of new filmmakers, that, if somebody listens to this conversation, they think, God, Peter's nailed it, just jumping from one thing to another, it's great, but actually...
I'm 250 now.
But the journey, I mean, it isn't an easy one, and there are you say there are loads of draft, loads of failures is maybe a strong word, but it's all about
failures is a good word. It took, so from I think finishing Milk to making Daphne, it took about 10 years. And it took, I think, 3 aborted or abandoned feature projects in that time that were written, semi-produced, developed, collapsed, 3 separate, on 3 separate occasions.
Yeah.
So the most important thing for anyone making a film, I think, especially with making your first funded short, it's just to keep making work, and almost if your film, one in 1,000 gets a way to get some award or something, and that's terrific. But you can't be disappointed if that doesn't happen. I think making a short film is a great way for you. And the director of the Bureau in Paris said to me after I made Daphne, a good film, Peter, is a film that doesn't stop you making another film. And I think, Bertrand Lefebvre, who said that to me, he's been in the business a long time. And he was right. So if you make a short film that is a disaster, just make another one. And if you make one which is really successful, make another one. Because the next one is really what we should always be aiming at, the next thing to keep going. Whether it's shorts or features or anything, making the next bit of work. Because you don't do what I did. There's my short film. What have we got now? Nothing.
Well, 2 things I'd like to pick up on then. One is relationships, because it seems that, you mentioned working with Marie on your first films, and then having a different experience on the Coming Up scheme, and now you have developing that relationship with Emily and with Nico and with the Bureau. So, are finding the right collaborators important to having a successful project?
For me, they are, finding people that share an interest in what you're doing, a sort of space that they want to explore, for me, is brilliant. It's the way I like to. I think film's a collaborative medium. And I think if you find anyone, a DOP or producers especially, that you like working with, that makes your work better, hang on to them. I've worked on 2 features now with the Bureau, and they're extraordinary. I think of them as friends as well as collaborators, and I want them there. There's 2 producers I work with, Tristan Gallagher and Valentina Brizzini. And those 2, we've developed 2 or 3 projects now. In fact, I think we're on a 4th project just now. Mm-hmm. It's a collaborative medium. They bring stuff to the table every day. which is essential. It makes the projects better. And in terms of talent, then I've worked with Emily a couple of times, and I'm sure we'll work together on something next. And one of the actors who's the lead in my film, Rialto, has a smaller part in Daphne. And I worked with him, and he was so good. I thought we have to make a project with him, and he's the lead in this one, Rialto. So I think on the technical side, I've worked with the same cinematographer on 2 projects. So I worked with Adam Scarth, who's a young DOP who I think is extraordinary, on Rialto and on Daphne, and we work in a very specific way, which is great fun. So in the second project, we have a bit of a shorthand. We have a method of working, and we apply the method of working to the project. It saves time. Now, I know some directors want to work with different DOP every time, and some want to stick with them. I think mixing up is really good, but every director has their own, way of working. What's terrific for me to remember, and maybe for some other directors, that everyone you work with on the set, the producers, the DOP, the recordist, art department, everyone does their job more often than the director. They have more set hours. The person on the set, the least amount of hours, is normally the director. And they're great collaborators. They know the business. They want the project to be as good as it can. So I think for me, picking really good people who can do stuff that I wouldn't even dream of thinking about how to approach in a collaborative form is it's a gift. I like to point out a sound designer I work with called Joachim Sundström, who's an amazing sound designer. And I've worked with him on a couple of projects, the last 2 features, and I hope to carry on working with him. So I think once you find people, hang on to them. I was very arrogant when I was a younger director starting out, because I think you need a bit of arrogance to get you going. But I'll tell you, the bravest person is the director who says, I don't know how to do that. What do we do? Now, that's
you can't be too precious, can you? You've got to.
There's no
everyone's
time. And no one cares. No one cares about the director's ego. Only the director cares about it. I think if you can get over your ego, and ego, I think, comes from fear, in the sense, once you get over that, you can collaborate,
Yeah.
In my opinion, we've all heard and seen, I'm sure, directors being old school dictatorial, on the set, and we've all seen directors who people think they don't know what they're doing at the other extreme. Actually, most people are both of those and everything in between. I think it's important when you're making a film and you're working with people that you have to admit to them that you don't know the answer to everything, because then they'll help you.
Yeah.
And it's really important. Once you find collaborators you love working with, you work with them again.
So here's a question that's come in as well, and it is an interesting one. You went to Goldsmiths. You went there and you said your early 30s. What was it that made you decide, actually, I'm going to go down this path. I'm going to spend some time and money trying to get into film. What was it, a passion that was there? And after this, do you still have that passion?
Sure.
Still as intense?
Yeah. At the time, I was a student at the RCS when it was the Royal
Scottish Academy of Music and Drama.
Yeah. So I was a student there, and I graduated now. I specialised in theatre direction. So I worked in the theatre after that as a director for 5 or 6 years. But I realised that I sort of hit a glass ceiling in the theatre, and I'd always wanted to do film. It'd always been a sort of secret hankering of mine to make a film, like most people. And I thought, if I want to do that, I need to give it a go.
Yeah.
After I worked in the theatre. I taught for a bit in FE, which was fun, but I didn't want it to be my life or my full-time career. And I thought, okay, I need a new burst of energy. I need to go and study this and learn about it. And going to do it was a great move. I mean, I was so lucky because I went to London and I was able to live almost rent-free with a friend. So I stopped work, I went there, I paid my fees, and then I started working again to pay off my debt. So that's why I could only afford to do a year, really. But I was fortunate that I had an infrastructure of a friend who would put me up whilst I did my MA. Unfortunately, I had to come back to Glasgow during my MA to do bits of teaching in order to pay for it. And I had to work probably too much during the MA, but that's, that's how it was, So I suppose if you're a student now, or you were a student 30 years ago in film, or you're a student in 10 years' time, the principle is the same. You just have to make work in any way you can, If you can learn about animation at home and make animation, I'd love to be able to do animation. Something I've always really been keen on. I've never quite found the time to learn how to do it, So
yeah.
Every day is say school day. You should be learning everything, and the interplay. Sorry, long-winded answer as usual, but the interplay of sound and image together still excites me the same way that it did when I started. So I've been doing this probably about 20 years now. God, so I've not done that much in 20 years. Still feel like I'm a novice, an old novice. There you go. An old man.
Like you said, every day's a school day, though, and as we discussed, although the principles are the same, the technology that surrounds it is different, which changes how quickly different schedules will be, and it's the same but different, isn't it? And in a way, for young people coming through who have phones and videos on their phones that can shoot 4K and control stuff. I mean, that would have been a dream, even 10 years ago or 15 years ago to be able to do that. And it has kind of democratized that level of filmmaking, hasn't it? And
it has. It's extraordinary. The technology is extraordinary. But it's like, what's the phrase? All the gear, no idea.
Yes.
You can have all the gear in the world. It's not going to make the film good. Your idea. You have to investigate your idea.
Absolutely.
And practice. That's going to make the film good. And then the good gear will help. But having that phone in your pocket that shoots better than most of the cameras I worked on, and low-band dramatic editing, and then crash editing before that. So, it's extraordinary. My son now makes videos on his iPad,
Wow.
And he's 6. And to be honest with you, I don't know how he does it. He sits down. I think my daughter showed him how to do it. So both of them make films.
So she's the producer.
He's the producer, presenter. He seems to be the editor, director. Right. It's extraordinary, but people stuck at home just now. Well, make a film. David Mackenzie made one. Have you seen it?
I've not seen it, but Peter Mackie as well. I think he made one. Yeah.
Make a film, and Jafar Panahi made out a great film called This Is Not a Film for different reasons a couple of years ago, because he was in Tehran and he was under house arrest, and he made a film in his sitting room, and he had to call it This Is Not a Film to get around the Iranian thing. So maybe constraints sometimes can be useful. I find that constraints can be budgetary constraints. For me, the constraint of talent can be good.
Not at all.
Can be good ingredients to try to work with.
We try and do that as well with the students in the undergrad by saying, okay, you have your budget is £50 and you have 2 days and you can only shoot in this one location and you can't use the track. So there's a camera. You can go and cast. We make money available for cast, and it is about putting that framework in that that really pushes the creative side as opposed to.
Yeah, I like to work with restrictions, and thankfully there are many in place. I find it makes me have to work a bit. You know, if I can have everything, relatively speaking, then it's like having nothing. You know.
Yeah.
So in order, I have to make a sort of artistic criteria, what the language is of the film, what the subject is, what are the constraints. You know.
Yeah.
Am I Terrence Malick and I can only shoot for 4 months in the golden hour? Or do I have to make a film in my bedroom? Or do I have to make a film when my kids are at school? You know what I mean? Whatever the constraints are, I think that's a good way to, it's a good way to enter an exercise. And I do really think it's important that you're making your first film. It's everything to you, and every decision is, you know, discussed and vital. What's important is you keep doing it though. You know, it's like on the on the Nike running club app, which I've been listening to for the last few months. Coach Mike says, "I love Coach Mike." Coach Mike says in my ear, "You know, the finishing line is just the starting line for the next race." Wow!
As you collapse in a heap.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a good. I think that's a good piece of advice to end on. Get Coach Mike, and yeah, just like you say, you got to keep you've got the technology in your pocket. You just got to go and do it, haven't you? No matter, you know, whether it's in formal education, whether it's you and your mates around the back garden or stuck in isolation, whatever it may be, you just got to go and go do it.
And this scheme that the guys are on, having the opportunity to make the first film, it's brilliant. You should be brave and fail, you know?
Absolutely. Good.
Fail again.
Good luck to you all with, sorry we couldn't get through all the questions, but yes, all the best with your filming ventures as you move forward, and thanks to Peter for your time today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to both of you. On behalf of Glasgow Film and Film City Futures, who are delivering Short Circuit. And I just wanted to check with you, Peter, so keep me right, Daphne is available on Amazon Prime and BFI Player, I think?
Amazon Prime, BFI Player, iTunes, I think.
Great, so people can check that out. Your short films are available online, you can find them online on Vimeo. And also Rialto, of course, will just be finished at the GFT, but you can catch that on Curzon Home Video or Curzon On Demand if you haven't seen it yet.
Sure.
So, thank you. Thanks again. Thanks, Ray, for hosting the conversation. There was loads of great insight, loads of great advice. And I really liked that phone call from Brenda Fricker, so thanks for that story too. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching. You can find out more about upcoming events on shortcircuit.scot and follow us on social media for updates.
Thank you.